Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. I have to start this one off with a disclaimer. I don't believe that the Serpent is a balanced defender. If you don't believe me, I'll leave a link down below to a forum post I made when I found out that he wasn't getting rebalanced. It gets spicy. So if that's not true, then what is the point of this video? Well, the point of this video is to try and understand Kabam's motive. What is their plan for the Serpent in the future? Why the hell did they not balance him? Other than them just being money-chasing bastards. Apart from that, I'm going to try and go into a little bit more detail than that, because I think I have an answer. Let's get into it. So this is, of course, where it all kicked off. These are the rebalance notes for the Serpent. Let's have a read. So with his aggressive defensive target, we were expecting the Serpent to make an immediate impact for our wallets. No, hang on. For both our PvP metas. Nobody really cares, nobody cares, nobody cares. Right. We're seeing his performance as a defender stabilize at a strong but healthy level. Strong but healthy level. Okay. There's a technical term for what that phrase is. Right, Kabam aren't just throwing out any old wish-wash. There's a technical term for what the phrase strong but healthy level means, and it's thrown around quite a lot in marketing, and that is lying. So what is a lie? Well, the dictionary definition of a lie is an intentionally false statement, i.e. something that is not true or bears no relation whatsoever to reality. So what does that mean for the Serpent? Well, what it means is absolutely nothing to do with his kit or anything he does on defense is either healthy nor stable. But would you be surprised to find out that this video is not actually about the Serpent? I want to draw a comparison between two characters, and that character is actually Domino. This video is about Domino, the original BS defender to be added to the game. When she was added back in 2018, there were, I would say next to none, but there were no domino counters. That phrase, domino counters. Tech characters with the crucial phrase, ability accuracy cannot be modified by mutants. The crucial clause in their kit that allows them to get around her crit fail and any sort of BS she has in shutting down abilities. And I'm going to make the case in this video that Kabam thought Serpent was balanced, not that he is balanced, but that Kabam thought Serpent was balanced because they want another Domino. He's balanced in the same way Domino is balanced. So the aim of this video is that hopefully the next time Kabam tries to blatantly lie to the community about something like this and try and say that the champion is balanced when it's not, the community can turn around and say, "You're lying, we know exactly what you're trying to do. Stop treating us like children. Let's have an honest conversation, because we are just as much in the know as you are." Now, I am well aware that Domino and the Serpent work in two very different ways, and I'm going to explain them now. So, Domino is based around luck. That's the whole point of her character. So, we've all had that guy in battlegrounds who goes in against our Domino without a counter and somehow comes out with like 51,000 points. You're like, what the hell, Domino, what are you even for? And it's super frustrating, and you think they're a hacker, but it happens. Because the point of Domino is that things have a habit of going downhill, but they can be okay. There's a series of events that can occur where you're perfectly fine. But the inverse is also true. People have gone in against my Domino with Shuri and Red Skull, and they've just died horribly. I don't even want to know what happened, because it's probably a crime against humanity. But no matter. The Serpent, on the other hand, let's call him the modern update. He is more about this unrelenting, crushing force of pure terror. I mean, he is the god of fear after all, so is a bit fitting. But he just piles on the defensive threats until even the best counters are just suffocated and they can do nothing about him. Just dread, death immunity, healing, unblockable, undexable, all the power gain. It just piles up and you can do nothing, and they work very differently. But the end result is the same. You get screwed over. So, to explain Kabam's thought process, let's have a look at all the champions that were released up until the end of 2018. This is the list. This is the complete list. So these are all the champions you had to deal with Domino when she was released. How many Domino counters do you see out of this list? And I know you see Red Skull, and you see Howard the Duck, and you see Ultron, but bear in mind, those champs hadn't been buffed yet. So Red Skull was still a tin can, and Howard the Duck was still a meme. Now, bear in mind, in 2018, battlegrounds wasn't a thing. So the place where the presence of Domino was most felt was top tier AW. But given a day to prepare and a good player and a pseudo counter and boosts and planning, you could probably get around her. Fast forward to 2022, look at all the counters that have been added to the game to deal explicitly with Domino. Nimrod, Omega Sentinel, Penny Parker, Infamous Iron Man, Mysterio, Guardian, Shuri, they're all there. And this leads me on to probably the most important concept to understand if we want to understand the stupid, ridiculous, brain-dead decision by Kabam to not rebalance the Serpent, and that is the concept of a timeless defender. So what is a timeless defender? Well, the definition I'm going to run with in this video is a defender that is sufficiently powerful to always be relevant, even as the offensive meta changes and improves over time. And it always does both. This is something you can guarantee of the offensive meta, because as new defensive threats are added into the game in the form of nodes and champions, the offensive meta needs to change to deal with them. And as it does that, it needs to take old threats under its wing. So it always expands in scope. So necessarily over time, the offensive meta changes and improves. And timeless defenders are defenders that will persist despite that. We are now in the year 2025. And I just took my Domino to 7-star rank 3. She is going on 7 years old. And yet she is still a supreme defender. And that is in the face of all the Domino counters, dedicated Domino counters that you saw in the last shot. And that was just of 2022. Do you want to talk about the ones that have been added since then? Do you want to talk about Prowler, or Arcade, or Jack-o'-lantern? I still took her to the highest possible rank that I had available to me, and so has every self-respecting top-end battleground player. Domino persists despite the changes and improvements in the tech meta, and I believe this is what Kabam's intention was for the Serpent. Now, whether or not that was a good intention or a good plan, or whether or not that has been executed particularly well, is entirely up for debate. I'm not saying that any of those things were done particularly well. I'm just saying that this is what I believe Kabam's intention for the Serpent was. They want him to continue to be a relevant, not stupid, but relevant defender, no matter how the Mystic class improves and changes over the years. Now, to illustrate this point better, let's devise a little thought experiment, shall we? Let's cast our minds back to 2018, the introduction of Domino, and let's imagine that we can just plop in Battlegrounds to the 2018 version of Marvel Contest of Champions. And oh my god, the scenes. I'm laughing just thinking about it. The scenes that would occur with Domino on defense and just the sheer lack of even anything resembling a counter at this time. It just doesn't even bear thinking about. It would be disgusting. The situation would be even worse then than it was last year when the Serpent was introduced, because at least last year we had champions like America Chavez and Kushala and Werewolf by Night who could at least somewhat shut down some of the defensive threats that the Serpent had to offer. But in 2018, you had none of that. So let's take this thought experiment a bit further. Let's imagine that the community has as much power as it has now, and that such a thing as the rebalancing program existed in 2018. Of course, there would be thousands of calls from the community to adjust this champion back down to a level that was even remotely acceptable in the meta of the day. And let's say that Kabam obliged. Let's say that, I'm just going to pull some rebalance numbers out of my arse here. Let's say that she could no longer turn off the dexterity mastery when you were unlucky. Let's say that your ability accuracy was only reduced to 90% and not 85%. And let's say that her crit fail damage was reduced by 20%. You can fiddle with these numbers as much as you want. This is just to prove a point. Kabam's thinking is that if they did that, in the long run, the change would be significant enough that the improvements and changes in the offensive meta would mean that Domino, over time, would become irrelevant. Not only that tech attackers, who are already a hard counter to the current Domino, will become even stronger against this newly tuned down Domino, but that pseudo-counters, such as Sunspot, Kushala or Photon, now become something resembling a harder counter as the defensive spikes of Domino become less sharp and the range of champions that can take her with a respectable score in battlegrounds becomes too broad for her to be relevant. That is why Kabam has not rebalanced the Serpent, I think. Of course, if I wanted to, I could save y'all 15 minutes of your lives and just say that they're money-grabbing bastards, but for the purpose of an intellectual debate, let's run with this as the reason. If they were to tune down the numbers of Serpent as requested by the community, in the long run, hard counters that already exist, like America Chavez, like Spiral, like Isophene, would become so good, and pseudo-counters that exist, such as Adam Warlock or Photon, will become closer to hard counters to such an extent that, you know, in 7 years' time, in 2032, God help me, I'm going to be... God, how old will I be? God, I'll be nearly 30. Oh, that's so depressing. Anyway, in 2032, we will not be able to take up our 7-star Serpent to rank 6 and have no fear that we have not wasted a slot in our Battlegrounds deck. The point of Serpent is the long run. You suffer now, and in the future, you get Domino 2.0. That is the point. Now comes the point in the video where I dismantle all of that and explain why that's bullshit. So, this strategy for releasing a defender worked for Domino, but it didn't work for Serpent. The idea of a timeless defender worked in 2018 and not now, purely because of Battlegrounds. Battlegrounds means that your average Joe, your average Marvel Contest of Champions player, gets a fistful of the latest defender every time they go into a match. And these defenders now play the most competitive, the most rewarding form of content in the game, which is Battlegrounds. Back in 2018, Domino was doing basically exactly the same things the Serpent is doing now, but the impact she had on the game was much less pronounced because her full effect was only felt by a very small portion of those in top tier AW. And the existence of Battlegrounds has just meant that the community is all the more hostile towards a champion such as Serpent. And you can see how this has kind of affected how fast Kabam has introduced counters. Like Spiral, Isophene, and Shathra. They were in quite the rush to get them out. Within half a year, we already have 3 quote-unquote hard counters to the Serpent. And I imagine basically every single Mystic that will be added to the game this year and in the coming years will have, in some way, shape, or form, an ability, a clause, something new that deals with some aspect of the Serpent, in the same way that most tech characters nowadays have a clause, an ability that allows them to deal with Domino. And the rate at which Kabam is having to come out with counters to deal with the presence of Serpent in BGs is only fueling the narrative that they are money-grabbing bastards, which of course they are. But you can see with the Domino counters, I had to fast forward 4 years to see an acceptable number of Domino counters in the game to prove a point. But within the space of a year of the Serpent coming out, we already have 3 hard counters in the form of Shathra, Spiral, Isophene, and more on the way. So Kabam are only really digging their own grave here by allowing the Serpent into a piece of content such as battlegrounds and then just doing nothing to stop him from being insane, allowing metas such as the extend node that just turn this guy from a beast into an unstoppable force of nature. So, hey, that is why I think at least Kabam did not rebalance the Serpent. That is about as good an explanation as I can muster. And let me know in the comments below if you agree, if you just think they're money grabbing bastards. Of course, that's completely reasonable, but let's keep it civil. I don't want to start another thermonuclear war like I did with the Quake video. But if you have made it this far, and you haven't jumped out of a window at the prospect of having to fight the Serpent again, then thank you very much for watching, and bye-bye.